girls of all ages over 18, of course, because that's how it goes on my fine, actually science-based channel, isn't it? Today we're dealing with people who want to be wrong on interwebs. I know, just for something different. It's incredible, isn't it? Today we're dealing with the turds from Mastering Hyperglycemia again. Yes, the criminally misanthropic Cyrus Kumsplatter and his little friend Grandma Robbie the Nobby, who have a guest who is also similarly criminally misanthropic, also similarly unable to speak the truth in any way, shape or form. We have another ideological misanthrope here. We have Dean Ornish, a career liar of the highest order, and an individual who really ought to be behind bars, in my humble opinion, for his criminal misanthropy. But that's for another day. Let's listen to what he has to say on this occasion and put it right where it's wrong. And spoiler, boys and girls, guess what? That's fucking everywhere. Off you go, Dean.
So let's talk a little bit here about low carbohydrate diets because, many people in the world of diabetes are drawn towards these very low carbohydrate diets.
Yeah, amazing that Kumsplatter, given that the disease diabetes is characterized by and is elevated blood glucose, and the way to elevate your blood glucose, son, is to pour carbohydrates down your neck. So obviously, in order to ameliorate that disease process, what you need to do is you need to consume a diet which does not contain a whole bunch of that particular substance, so as not to exacerbate the situation. It's really quite straightforward. What's next?
Ketogenic diets to either reverse, quote unquote, reverse type 2 diabetes or to control type 1 diabetes. Now, on the internet, there's also a lot of people who directly contrast the ketogenic diet to the Ornish program, claiming that the ketogenic diet is more effective and has better long-term outcomes.
And that's because it does, Kumsplatter. That's why they're saying that, son.
So is this true, or, what do you say to people?
Yes, it is. We actually don't need to hear from Dean Ornish anymore. Thank you very much, Kumsplatter, for your time. It is true. The Ornish program is inferior to any ketogenic or low-carbohydrate diet long-term for the outcomes as they relate to type 1 and type 2 diabetes, and a bunch of other things as well, demonstrably so, clearly and unequivocally so. We're done. But I don't think Dean's done. Let's hear what Dean has to say.
People who claim that the ketogenic diet is a better option.
Well, it's always easy to tell people what they want to hear, and telling people that,
Or we could deal with the facts, Dean. That'd be an idea. I know that's completely foreign to you, Dean. Absolutely, completely foreign to you, but we could actually just stick to the facts and that which is demonstrable with empirical evidence of any kind. Have we got any of that?
Steak is good for your heart or your arteries. It's a good way to sell books and so on. But it's unfortunately, it's not true.
That's false, Dean. That's your opinion. That's your ideological standpoint. That's your position statement. But that is unsupported by science or evidence of any kind extant anywhere in the literature. It is a lie, son. To say steak is not good for your heart, ridiculous. Absolutely, utterly ridiculous.
I grew up in Texas eating meat all the time before I gave it up when I was 19, and I can understand why some people would want to believe that that's true. It's just, unfortunately, it's not.
But again, repeating the same vapid, vacuous, unsupportable opinion twice doesn't make it any more credible, Dean. It's still wrong. Show me some evidence that steak is bad for anything. You won't be able to do it because no such evidence exists anywhere in the literature. Good luck trying to find it.
There's enough of a kernel of truth in there, though, that makes it confusing to people, because everyone knows someone who has lost weight on a high protein, low carb Atkins or whatever the latest ketogenic, paleo, whatever version, whatever name you want to give it. It really even goes beyond. I debated Dr. Atkins on many occasions before he died, as it turned out, from heart failure.
Another complete lie there, Dean Ornish. This is unbelievable, isn't it, kids? Dr. Atkins died as a result of medical complications caused absolutely unequivocally by his medical maltreatment that he received while in a coma as the result of a head injury suffered during a fall on an icy pavement, Dean. He was obese at the time of his death, and that was because of the way he was being enterically fed and the slop that he was being fed in the hospital, combined with the effects of the drugs he was being administered while in a coma, which also led to a huge amount of water retention as well, which exacerbated the whole situation. And in fact, son, there has never been any publication of any autopsy reports that are bona fide on Dr. Atkins. This is just absolute propaganda nonsense. Just amazing. Give people part of a story, which is what all you veganerized fucktards do. Give people part of a story, fill their vacuous heads with propaganda. You guys, all you do is prey on stupid people, frankly. It's disgraceful. It's disgusting. You should be absolutely fucking ashamed of yourselves. You know, and while we're at it, it's a thing I'm not allowed to comment on. So again, as usual, I won't comment on it directly, but let me just suggest the question or pose the question to people. Is this an individual that you would feel comfortable taking health advice from? If you would, good luck to you.
But what's really the reason that it's confusing is that there's an element of truth in there. And the element of truth is...
You'd be an expert on talking about elements of truth, bits and bobs of things without giving people the story, wouldn't you, Dean? Absolute expert on that.
Is that most of it...
For a start, you claim in one of your publications to have established that a plant-based diet can cause the regression of atherosclerosis heart disease. And your paper doesn't show anything of the sort or anything remotely similar to that. And then others laud you and the other paper of a similar nature done by Esselstyn as if those two papers establish the case. Neither one of them does anything remotely similar to that. They are both complete misrepresentations. They are also, neither one of them, scientific experimental works of any kind. They are both idealistic propaganda pieces. And you should both be absolutely fucking ashamed of yourselves. What's next?
Americans eat way too many refined carbohydrates, sugar, white flour, white rice, and so on.
Yeah, and so why would you be concerned about refined carbohydrates any more than unrefined carbohydrates, Dean? The answer you would probably give me is that you would say that refined carbohydrates are lacking the nutrients that you find in unrefined carbohydrates. Well, no, there are no nutrients required by human beings found in any whole plant-based diet that you can't get from meat, none at all, not a single thing. And secondly, you would say, oh yes, but refined carbohydrates dump sugar into the bloodstream much more rapidly than unrefined carbohydrates, which is also a fallacy, Dean. It's false. There is no good, valid scientific evidence to support that claim. You're talking about the GI scale, which is an absolute joke. Go and look up my video on the GI scale where you will find the exact problem, the exact hole in the assertion that the GI scale is remotely a valid measurement of anything whatsoever. Okay? Carbohydrates all break down to the same thing, Dean, in the bloodstream, and that is sugar. Okay? Sorry about that. Those are the facts. All carbohydrates are therefore contraindicated in the human diet. There is a tolerance level in human beings, sure. It's non-zero, but it's almost zero for the vast majority of human beings. Carbohydrates are a problem. They are contraindicated. This is clear and patent. There is no way to escape this fact. What's next?
So if you stop eating them, that's a good thing. The question then becomes, what do you replace them with? And so, replacing sugar with pork rinds and bacon and sausage is not a good choice.
Well, perhaps because some of the refined meats, some of the processed meats is really the better term for them. Some of those can be problematic in large amounts. You shouldn't be doing that. You should base your diet on reasonably fresh muscle meat and associated fat of large ruminant animals, mostly grass-fed if you possibly can afford it, and it's available to you. Thanks. Simple. What's next?
Replacing sugar and white flour with whole wheat flour and brown rice and fruits and vegetables and whole grains in their natural forms is a much better choice.
In their natural forms, you say, Dean. Show me the natural form of flour. What plant does flour grow in its natural form? Irrespective of the colour of the flour, flour is ground up grass seed. But that's not how it's naturally found. It's found as a whole seed. Are you suggesting people eat whole seeds, Dean? Is that a good idea? I can promise you it's not, son. What about natural fruit? Show me some natural fruit available in a supermarket today, Dean. None of those fruits are natural at all, remotely. None of them are even remotely similar to their natural counterparts as designed, if you like, by natural selection processes prior to the agrarian revolution and plant husbandry and all that kind of stuff. Most fruits and vegetables available today, Dean, did not exist 200 years ago, even. Absolutely ridiculous that you would make a claim that those things are better for you than eating meat of any kind, processed or not, actually. All of those things are contraindicated. Fructose is one of the worst carbohydrates you can consume, Dean. Fact. Anti-nutrients, toxins in plant materials, Dean, in vegetables and leafy greens and things. Contraindicated, Dean. Incredible.
And the reason is that when you eat a lot of sugar, or for that matter, when you go from, say, whole wheat flour to white flour, brown rice to white rice, you're removing the fiber and the bran. And
there you go. You don't need either of those things. Fiber is not only is fiber not required in the human diet, it is contraindicated. It is problematic. It is damaging to enteric function. Unequivocally. There is only one even remotely pseudoscientific, remotely pseudo-interventional study on this available anywhere in the literature, Dean. And it is absolutely unequivocal in its findings. Go and look up Dr. Paul Mason and fiber as your search terms on the YouTube's videos here, and you'll find a video done by Dr. Paul Mason on the study I'm referring to, where he talks about it in some depth. You'll learn something.
Fiber and the bran fill you up before you get too many calories, so you don't overeat.
Calories, Dean, are heat. How do you get too much heat from food? How does that happen? It doesn't, buffhead. What's next?
Eat. Those calories tend to be much less dense.
Calories can't be less dense. A calorie is a calorie. It is a measurement of heat energy and nothing else, Dean. You absolute moron. You utter charlatan. You propagandist. You liar. You misanthropist.
Those foods tend to be less dense in calories.
No. Dense in calories? No. To be less dense in calories, something would have to be cooler. Because calories are heat energy, Dean, and nothing else. So, if you want a less calorie dense soup, eat it as an ice block, freeze it. Okay? Good work, Dean. Good sciencing there, son.
Because fat has 9 calories per gram, and proteins and carbs will have only 4.
False. That is not true. Well, it is true if you burn those things in a bomb calorimeter. That's not what the human body does with those things. Ergo, it is not, in effect, true. Because you are asserting that calories are a meaningful measurement of energy derivable from foods by human beings. And that is false, Dean. Completely false. What's next?
So if you eat less fat, you're going to be eating fewer calories.
Not necessarily, because you might eat twice as much so-called food in order to attempt to gain satiety, which you'll struggle to do eating plants, Dean.
And when you go from brown rice to white rice, the fiber ordinarily not only fills you up, but it also slows the rate of absorption from your gut into your bloodstream.
And also destroys your enteric function entirely over time, Dean, as well.
So if you eat a lot of white flour or sugar or white rice, it's like mainlining sugar. Your blood sugar zooms.
All carbohydrates break down to sugar in the bloodstream, Dean. One of the carbohydrates is dealt with slightly differently from the rest, that being fructose. That's for another day. We can cover that another day. But the take-home message is here that carbohydrates break down to sugar, all of them. You can't delineate between good sugar and bad sugar. It's all bad in the diet, Dean. There is no place in the human diet for exogenous carbohydrate. None at all. What's next?
Up, and your pancreas senses that, your brain senses that, and so your pancreas, it says, make more insulin so that you can get your blood sugar back down, because your body wants to keep your blood sugar in certain normal range.
There you go. See, your body reacts to pouring sugar into it by releasing a hormone that gets that sugar out of your bloodstream and lowers it again. Isn't that amazing how that happens? It's almost as if your body knows that having too much sugar in any one area is a problem. And so when there's too much in the bloodstream, it's allowed to pour into the cells to a point until those cells are replete with energy. They don't want too much sugar in them either. So at that point, once those cells are replete with energy, the Randall cycle kicks in. The doors to those cells that allow the sugar in are locked, and then sugar will start to pour, or to pool, if you like, in the blood instead, because the blood cells and the blood itself and the enteric, not the enteric, the cells lining the vascular tree, if you like, become the sacrificial lambs in this matter, and it's them that bear the brunt of the glycation damage instead of the cells. It's pretty straightforward to understand, really. I've done many videos on this in the past. Maybe you should watch some of them, Dean, and bring yourself up to speed with science and physiology and what's indicated and otherwise. Okay? Good lad. What's next?
Range. So it doesn't just go up and then come down where you started. It's like a pendulum. If you pull it one direction, it goes past that. So you get too high, then you get too low, and you get that carbohydrate craving, and it becomes a vicious cycle. But the goal is not to go from this to,
show me movies.
Hundreds.
Big movies. Show me all of it.
Pork rinds and bacon and sausage. The goal is to go to
Is there anybody out there who is suggesting that pork rinds, bacon, and sausage are a good basis for the human diet, and that's all you need, and that you shouldn't do anything else except eat pork rinds, bacon, and sausages? This is a ridiculous, pathetic straw man, Dean. Human beings ought to base their diet on relatively fresh muscle meat and associated fats from large ruminant animals, grass-fed. Okay?
the good carbs, fruits and vegetables.
There are no good carbs in the diet. None at all. Carbs are contraindicated exogenously. Your body is capable of manufacturing all the glucose that it requires itself, and it does that from non-carbohydrate precursors, mostly the glycerol backbones of triacylglycerol molecules. However, other capabilities include monocarboxylates such as lactate and pyruvate, if you like, to think of it in that way as well. And also there are one or two gluconeogenic amino acids as well. Okay, it's all taken care of. You don't need 1 single gram of carbohydrate in your diet, not one ever. The same is true of fiber. That is not required. In fact, both carbohydrate and fiber are actually clearly, unequivocally contraindicated for human beings. Anyone who understands organ systems, human physiology, basic biochemistry, common sense and science will agree with me on that. Everybody else is a fucking idiot. What's next?
And whole grains and legumes, because they fill you up before you get to the.
You've said that many, many times. The goal is not to be filled up, Dean. The goal is to reach a point where your brain gives you a satiety signal. There are several things that can initiate a satiety signal. One of them is stretch receptors of the stomach, getting to a point where your stomach is full and therefore your brain says, stop eating at the moment because I am full. It doesn't mean you have the nutrient on board that you need if that is the thing that stops you from eating at that time. The other way to get a satiety signal is to make sure that you are replete with all the nutrient you require, and the way to do that is to eat an appropriate serving once a day of the muscle meat and associated fat of large ruminant animals, grass-fed, please. Okay, what's next?
Calories.
No, nothing to do with calories, you buffhead. Calories are heat, you mindless cocksplat. Calories are heat.
You need a nice constant level of energy throughout the day.
Calories are not energy. Calories are heat energy. Humans don't run on heat energy. Humans run on chemical energy. They are not interchangeable. They are not interconvertible. That is not how the human physiology functions and works. Thermodynamics is not applicable here. I've covered that in some detail on other videos here on my channel. For those who are scientifically minded and want to understand why I've said that, go and check those videos out.
And most importantly is they keep you healthy.
No, they don't. There is nothing in plant material that will keep you healthy if you eat it. Plants are contraindicated in the human diet, all of them.
I mean, there was a study by Stephen Smith in the New England Journal of Medicine about 4 or 5 years ago, and they looked at was actually reporting a study by someone named Edmund Fu. And they found in arteries, see, what's important is to look at not just what happens.
Can you actually get a cogent thought out of your brain without wandering off on 7 different tangents, stopping halfway through a sentence and starting a completely new one? This is incredible, isn't it, kids? What are you trying to say here, Dean Ornish?
With your blood sugar or your cholesterol or other risk factors.
No, cholesterol is not a risk factor for anything unless it's too low, Dean.
Because, and by the way, what happens?
See what I mean? One thought at a time, Dean, and tell us what it is to its conclusion. The reason you're not finishing any of these thoughts is because you actually don't have any point to make, isn't it? This is just noise coming out of your rancid gob. It's just ridiculous, pustulous, excremental garbage from start to finish, all of it.
What happens also is when you get these repeated surges of insulin, your insulin receptors downregulate. It's kind of like the boy who cried wolf. It's like, oh, poor insulin. I don't need to deal with that. So
by that statement, we can now see that Dean Ornish also does not understand the Randall cycle. Surprise, surprise.
People who have type 2 diabetes, generally, it's not that they don't have enough insulin, which is a very common misconception. Because
no, it isn't, Dean. We all understand what the problem is. It's the Randall cycle.
Sometimes people get put on insulin, so I must not have enough.
Except you, son. You don't seem to understand it. The rest of us do.
Of it. But they become resistant to the insulin because these repeated surges.
Insulin resistance is a construct. It's a concept. It's not a physiological response. It's not measurable. There's no piece of kit that measures insulin resistance. Name me a manufacturer that makes an insulin resistance meter, Dean. It does not exist, and neither does insulin resistance as a physiological signal. It's a construct. What's next?
Of insulin, when they keep hitting the insulin receptor, they cause the insulin receptor to become less sensitive.
You clearly don't understand what is causing the insulin receptor to not respond to the insulin. It is the Randall cycle, Dean.
Insulin resistant. And so that's really the precursor of type 2 diabetes.
No, it isn't. It's the result of it, Dean. You silly boy. 180 degrees out of phase with reality there, son. The thing that you are referring to as insulin resistance is a symptom of type 2 diabetes. It is not the precursor of it. It is not the cause of it. It's the result of it. For goodness sake. What's next?
And so when you eat a whole foods plant-based diet, and particularly when you do these other things, your insulin receptors become more sensitive.
Because you deactivate the Randall cycle issue when you do that. However, within about 5 years, what you'll find is that 84% of people that ever try that diet will quit. And 90% of those people will state that the reason they stopped doing that was because of catastrophic health failure, born of vast, gross nutrient deficiency, which is what you will get on a plant-based diet, Dean. You will also find that someone who eats a fully carnivorous diet, one with no plants, will experience the exact same improvement in their blood sugar dynamics, which is what we're talking about here, blood sugar dynamics, not insulin dynamics and not insulin resistance, Dean. They will get the exact same benefit, and they don't have to quit within 5 years because of failing health, unlike the veg-tards.
So your need for insulin goes down. That's why invariably when people go on the diet and lifestyle program that I recommend, they, under their doctor's supervision, they can reduce or often get off their insulin altogether. And that helps to prevent a lot of the ravages of diabetes, because insulin, has a lot of problems of its own.
Exogenous insulin does, yes.
In terms of increasing inflammation and things like that.
Yes, that's why you ought to undertake a lifestyle which minimizes or indeed eliminates the need for exogenous insulin on a daily basis. But that diet should also be complete with all the nutrient required by a human being. And I'm sorry, Dean, the plant-based diet fails miserably on that score. Plus, it's full of all sorts of other irritants, enteric function destructors, anti-nutrients, toxins, pro-inflammatory substances as well, because plants are full of that kind of stuff.
Now, if you actually look at what happens in arteries on different diets, it's night and day. There have been a number of studies in the past that would say,
short-term reductionist studies that don't actually inform us in any way, shape, or form on long-term hard health outcomes in human beings at all, Dean.
Let's put some people on an Ornish diet and some on an Atkins diet, and they'll say, well, the LDL, the bad cholesterol goes...
There is no such thing as bad cholesterol, and LDL is not cholesterol, Dean. Absolutely nothing you've just said is remotely valid. Bad cholesterol. No, not at all. False. Nonsense. You ignorant child.
Goes down more on Dean's diet, but the triglycerides go down a little more on the...
Again, triglycerides are not the cause of a problem, any problem. Ridiculous.
Atkins diet, so it's kind of a wash. Tell your patients eat what they want. But cholesterol and triglycerides are not diseases. They're only important to the extent that they actually affect what's going on in your arteries and in your body.
No, Dean. What's important is long-term hard health outcomes in human beings who consume certain types of diets. Do you have any empirical evidence on any of those aspects of anything? No, you don't. Do you have any evidence, cause and effect, that either cholesterol or triglycerides are causal in any health problem of any kind? No, you don't. They do not exist.
And if you actually look at that, as we've done...
I have done very carefully over a very, very significant number of years, Dean. It's been a large part of my entire professional engagement for a goodly number of years. I do understand this very, very well. And you don't even understand that LDL is not cholesterol, and neither is any aspect of cholesterol bad unless you don't have enough of it in your body, which is very, very bad. Okay, what is next?
We find the arteries get less and less clogged over time. And so in this New England Journal of Medicine article, they had at the top a whole foods plant-based diet, like I'd recommend. The arteries are essentially clean. On a standard American diet, they're partially clogged. But on the high-protein, low-carb diets, Atkins, paleo, ketogenic, whatever name you want to give to it, they're severely clogged.
That is absolute nonsense. Cite the study, Dean. Cite the study and I'll show you what's wrong with it. That's just propaganda. That's just yet another lie. I mean, here is a bloke who in this video alone has said Atkins died because of heart failure. No, he died because of a head injury. The root cause of Atkins' issues was the head injury, a traumatic head injury. Okay? You've said that there's such a thing as good and bad carbohydrates. No, there aren't. You've suggested that fiber is crucial in the diet. No, it isn't. You've said bad cholesterol, which does not fucking exist. You've spouted a bunch of ideology and provided not a single citation to any empirical evidence to support any of your ridiculous fucking claims whatsoever. Stunning. What's next?
But what's interesting is that it wasn't always reflected in the usual risk factors like cholesterol and
cholesterol is not a risk factor for anything unless you don't have enough of it. I've covered that.
blood pressure and weight.
Blood pressure and weight. Well, blood pressure, yes. Weight, no. Fatness, Dean, yes. Okay, again, a spade is a spade, and you want to put yourself forward as a competent scientist, which you're not one of, by the way, then what you need to do is you need to communicate clearly and unequivocally. And weight could be made up a bunch of different ways, couldn't it?
They were mediated through what they called non-traditional risk factors, things that most people haven't heard of, like endothelial-derived factors that cause inflammation.
And what's the cause of the inflammation? What's the root cause of the inflammation, Dean? Oh, yes. Plants, plant toxins, pro-inflammatory substances found in plants. Upset microbiomes caused by eating an inappropriate diet for human beings based on a lot of plants and fibers, which destroy the function of said colon and lead to systemic inflammation responses. Yep, cool.
Other things that are probably too technical to get into here. And so that's really the bottom line. And so you can lose weight on a high protein, low carb diet.
You can also lose weight by having your limbs removed surgically, Dean. Shall we do that? No? Why not? You're making it like losing weight is the important thing. Well, limbs weigh something. Let's just remove them. Buff head.
You're eating a lot of carbs, because just eating fewer carbs is going to do that. But you can lose even more weight and do it in a healthy way without mortgaging your health by eating fewer carbs and less fat and more fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, and soy products.
All the things you've just said that people should eat more of, Dean, are all things containing carbs. And you've said that in the same sentence as people can do well by eating less carbs. Which is it, son? Make up your fucking mind. I know you can't make up your mind because that would require you to have a mind in the first place. Goodness me. Very, very credible, Dean Ornish. No.
Then you're getting the best of both worlds.
Yep.
Wrong. False. Everything Dean Ornish has just had to say, utter fucking nonsense. All of it.
So, your program...
Oh, Grandma Robbie's here to sum up. Good to see you, Robbie Nobby. Wow. Just wow.
Program focuses on low-fat, plant-based nutrition.
Bad idea. Obviously.
And by the way, there's not a single study that's ever been published showing that a high protein, low carb diet can actually reverse heart disease.
And there hasn't been one published suggesting that any diet can reverse heart disease, Dean. None at all. You absolute fucking liar. You're about to cite your own study that does not show any such thing. I've covered it in depth on my channel before and also on my other platform, which people might like to take an odyssey of discovery to see if they can find such an alternate platform upon which they could find many, many videos about some of the charlatans floating around like this clown here, Ornish. So yes, do take an odyssey of discovery on the internet and just do a search by name for me on the search engine of your choice, and you should find it, should you undertake such an odyssey. And you can watch those videos there. There's over 1,000 of them, and they're all the old classics. They're all still there for you to view. Do go and make yourself known over there. Right, what's next?
Studies that have been done actually show the opposite.
No, they don't, Dean. There are no studies that show one way or the other anything whatsoever cause and effect as regards any hard health outcome in human beings over any period of time, long or short. None. You liar.
Whereas, and people say, well, grass-fed beef, that's so good for you. Again, it sounds great. It has that nice romantic quality to it. But there's not a single shred of evidence that grass-fed beef is good for you either. In fact,
that's right, and there's no evidence that anything is good for you as relates to any hard health outcome of any kind, Dean. There are no experiments on human beings available from which we can draw such an inference. None.
There have been a number of studies. Walter Willett at Harvard looked at over 300,000 men and women.
That's not a study. That's a piece of epididly-doodlimology. It's nonsense. Absolute fucking nonsense, Dean. The fact that you don't understand why nutritional epididly-moodlimology is fucking nonsense just once again points to your absolute incompetence as a scientist, which of course would have already been clear to anybody who read your paper claiming that a plant-based diet causes heart disease regression. They're all laughing with me right now because they've all seen your paper. They are rolling around on the floor, Dean. Science. Yeah, okay, if you say so, son.
And found that
Have you been listening to Milty McCrackpants? Milty Mills there. I think you have. Speaking lessons from Milty Mills. Good.
Diets that are high in red meat and animal protein in general significantly increase the risk of premature.
No. Epidemiological studies cannot inform on risk as that relates to any aspect of health outcome in human beings over any period of time, long or short. Risk is a cause and effect statement, and it's a cause and effect inference. These are associative studies, and they don't even report what was actually observed. They are fantasy. They belong in the fiction section. They are so far divorced from actual science that they are not even pseudoscience, Dean. They are anti-science. This is garbage. What's next?
Death from heart disease, diabetes, and most forms of cancer.
No, it's not even true, what you've just said. The studies that you're talking about don't even show that, Dean. At all. False.
Prostate, breast, and colon cancer.
Tell you what, Dean, anytime you want to debate epidemiology with me, you send me 3 pieces of epidemiology that you think support your idea that a plant-based diet is good, or that a meat-based diet is bad, or any combination of those, and we'll sit down over probably an hour or so, live on camera, and I will tear your epidemiology and you to pieces without breaking a sweat. Among other things, I am a professor of pure and applied statistical inference and statistical procedure, Dean. Okay? So I'm well and truly au fait with this area of pseudoscientific crackpottery. All right? And you are espousing nothing but ideology, fantasy, and propaganda here. It is absolutely disgusting and disgraceful, and you need to stop doing it.
So we need to get past this kind of low-carb versus low-fat debate. I'm certainly tired of that.
Yeah, we're very tired of it too, Dean, because there is nothing to debate here. Nothing whatsoever. All you clowns have got is you just keep repeating yourselves over and over again, no matter how many times you are absolutely unequivocally, inescapably debunked by competent scientists. You're back the very next week repeating the same propaganda, the same ideology, the same fucking nonsense again in your videos again. You have been dealt with more times than you've had hot feeds, actually, son, in your life. Your criminal misanthropy must stop. You are espousing an ideology which is based entirely on trying to suggest that animal foods are bad for human beings. There is no evidence to support that claim extant anywhere in the literature or anywhere else. It is a false claim. It is a lie. Just like Atkins died because of heart failure. No. Atkins died because of complications of a traumatic head injury. You fucking liar. Just like saying bad cholesterol is in and of itself, when you put those two words together, that is a fucking lie, Dean. Demonstrably an absolute fucking lie. Propaganda, ideology, rubbish. Just like everything that comes out of your rancid, stinking, excremental fuckhole in the middle of your head. You are a piece of shit, Dean Ornish. You need to stop.
It turns out that animal protein seems to be an even bigger role in this. There's certainly a comparable
Role. That is a cause and effect inference. Do you have any evidence? No, you don't. Pop yourself to fuck. Don't pass go or collect $200. You liar.
role. And there are a number of studies that have been done by Morris and others, for example, that have shown that animal protein increases your risk of...
No. False. There are no studies done that show an increased risk of anything, heart health outcomes-wise, in human beings over any period of time, long or short, as that regards any aspect of human nutrition, whatever. Stop fucking lying. No.
Premature death by 75%.
No. False. Lie.
By diabetes by 400%.
Lie.
And by the most common forms of cancer by 500%.
Lie. All lies, Dean. If you want to debate it with me, email me, son, and I will tear you to fucking pieces.
Independent of the whole protein versus carbs thing. So that's why I think an optimal diet is not only low in the bad carbs.
There are no such thing as bad carbs if you're going to suggest that there are good carbs. For goodness sake. All carbs are bad in the diet. There is no place in the diet for carbohydrates. You don't need to consume any carbohydrates. At all. None.
And the bad fats, but also...
There are bad fats. Which fats would you suggest are bad, Dean? Not that we really care about your stupid, ignorant fucking opinion. But guess what? I'm prepared to bet any amount of money that you're going to get that completely fucking wrong as well.
The bad proteins, the animal proteins.
Animal proteins are bad proteins. There you go, boys and girls. There's the take-home message. Animal proteins are bad. Okay? Dean, you're an animal made of protein, aren't you? You're also an obligate hypercarnivore, whether you fucking like that or not. That's your genetic design. Simple. Jesus Christ.
Proteins. And it's much more on the good carbs, i.e. fruits.
There are no good carbs, Dean. No, son.
Vegetables, whole grains, legumes, soy products.
They are not good carbs, no.
In its natural forms with all the fiber
They are not natural forms either, you fucking liar.
It has.
And fiber is contraindicated.
The good fats, like the omega-3 fatty acids that you can find either if you're vegan and plankton-based.
No, you can't. No, you can't. Plankton contains animal products, Dean. Plankton is not a plant. Buffhead. And you probably should have a look at a study done by Pim Johnson and myself a few years back where we showed omega-3, especially omega-3 supplements, to be particularly dangerous and problematic for human health, as in all likelihood. In fact, Dean, perhaps you should go and check that one out as well. You might learn something there. Not a single fucking thing correct, Dean. Nothing whatsoever.
Or in fish oil.
Fish oil. Go and have a look at that study I was talking about a few seconds ago, Dean.
And in the good carbs that we've been talking about.
There are no good carbs, Dean.
You know, whole grains and things that have low glycemic indices.
Yeah, we've spoken about the GI already, Dean, in this video. You should go and check my video out on that. And you'll learn something from that as well. No, the GI scale is nonsense. Complete fucking nonsense. Right, well, there you go. Dean Ornish, absolute incompetent charlatan, liar, propagandist, misanthropist, high priest of the Church of Anorexia Vegana, buffhead, and just all-out piece of shit all around, basically. Absolutely fucking disgraceful conduct from start to finish. Just unbelievable, isn't it, kids? All right, join me next time when someone else will be wrong on the interwebs because it doesn't look like slowing down anytime soon. See you then.